If I would accelerate rural development, I would make women mobile. If you want quick acceleration, make more women, those elected women, visible. Equip them and upskill them in confidence building so that they understand what their responsibility is. The revolution of India through rural would come from empowering women through mobility. I believed in crime prevention and then crime detection. Advice to girls before they become girls. They grow up as girls. It's advice to parents. Right. Don't hold back your girls.
Hello and a warm welcome to a very special podcast on She Diaries, brought to you by She at Work, a one-stop knowledge hub for women entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs in association with BRICS CCI WE, the women's empowerment vertical of the BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I'm your host, Gaurav Chaudhary. In this series, we have some exemplary guests, each one an icon in their field of work, each one an outstanding change maker. Join me in this podcast as we learn to break barriers, negate notions, and strive to steadily create a more equitable, gender-equal society for all. I have with me Dr. Kiran Bedi, who is the BRICS CCI WE Trailblazer Global Woman Icon Lifetime Achievement Awardee for this year. She's an Indian Police Service, the first woman to be so, former Lieutenant Governor of Puducherry, founder of the Navjyoti India Foundation and the India Vision Foundation, and her long list of accomplishments is so long that I cannot complete, even if I'm given an hour to do so. She has set benchmarks for millions and millions of girls in India and women in India, and I'm delighted to have her for this podcast. Welcome to the show, ma'am.
Thank you, Gaurav.
Delighted to have you. Ma'am, one of the things that we always continue to talk about is how do we go about setting up a more gender equitable society in India. How far do you think we have come? Because you have been at the forefront of bringing about change in this space, and with a great degree of success too. But how far do you think we have come, and how far do you think we need to go?
Well, it's been a good big push, very big push from when I began my career and my student life and my growth. It's a big push. It's a big acceleration. But the world is so big. Mm-hmm. And India is 1.4 billion.
Right.
So it's a long way to go. But we can accelerate it if we do certain things right and more and abundance and not do piecemeal. So it's a big push. We've come a long way, but a very long way to go.
Interesting, because you used the word accelerate, and it's such a powerful word. As it turns out that the theme for this year's International Women's Day is also accelerate action. And what is it, if I may ask you, what is it? Because you have the ringside view of transformation that have taken place. You have been at the forefront of it. You have been an outstanding change agent in places like the kind of work that you've done in prison reforms. But what is one thing you will do differently now, if you're given a chance, to accelerate action?
Well, if I would look at rural areas, which is a very large percentage of India, where 1/3 of the women are elected representatives and they're leading the change in the villages. Mm-hmm. Because since you mentioned my foundation, Navjyoti India Foundation, which works with the rural areas, if I would accelerate rural development, I would make women mobile.
Right.
Straight away mobile. When I say mobile, why do I say this? Because I see them dependent on their husband's scooter to take them to places and their meetings where they want to.
That's right.
There are not many who have a scooty.
Right.
So if you want quick acceleration, make more women, those elected women, visible. Mm-hmm. Number one, how will you have visibility? Unless you have mobility.
Right.
And that mobility, don't pinch their pocket. Give, as from panchayati budgets, give them the scooties, which are the battery driven. They are very low cost, low maintenance, and that will set them free.
Right.
So that they are no more dependent on their husband saying, could you take me?
Right.
Could you? And the husband decides that he's busy or he can't. So they're very small percentage of women, particularly in the northern India, which this is required. Because northern India is still very strongly patriarchal.
Right.
So therefore, North India, and see, it's a North India which is populating the country yet still. So why? Because women's mobility is restricted and their dependence on their families is high. So I would say, mobility. Moment you bring in mobility, they come under control. They are entrepreneurial. They see they are able to fulfill their responsibilities as a leader much better because they're seeing problems. They know what to change, and second is equip them and upskill them in confidence building so that they understand what their responsibility is. What are they elected for? It's not to carry out what family says, but what they see through their mobility, and they're skilled to identify how to go about it. This is second. So mobility, resources, and third is upskilling, as I said, and then making them very strong leadership of self-help groups. Because literally we must make sure that if any woman is even sitting at home and her family is her priority or domestic cattle is her priority, she could still be a member of a self-help group, which financially empowers her, upskills her, develops her personality, and gives her certain confidence-building traits, because that's what my foundation does. So the revolution of India through rural could come from empowering women through mobility and through upskilling, and also making them more confident so that they spot and they drive the change. And that's where acceleration will happen.
Absolutely. Very well said, ma'am. One of the things among the many accomplishments is also one that stands out, is also the changes that you brought about in Tihar. We know the changes that you brought about, the transformation that has taken. In fact, your term, the period that is served in Tihar stands out as a point of inflection. Tihar before Dr. Kiran Bedi and Tihar after Dr. Kiran Bedi is a massive change. However, if I may ask you, what are the challenges that you encountered and how did you overcome this while trying to bring about those changes?
It's very interesting, Gaurav. First of all, nobody expected the prisons to be reformed and changed, because prisons were considered a place of lodging as punishment. My approach to crime has been from day one of my policing was prevention. So before I became the Inspector General of Indian Tihar prisons, I was basically a lover of prevention. I believed in crime prevention and then crime detection. Whereas the whole training was the other way around. Is train in detection and prevention was just a cursory community policing. But I think my whole growth was prevention. Prevent a problem before you start dealing with it. And then deal it in such a way that you further prevent reoccurrence. So as a police officer, my approach to policing was crime prevention. So before I took about prisons, prevention in policing, crime prevention was my key in policing. So it was a habit. Every time I would arrest a criminal or a person who was arrested for a crime, I would go about to ask, where did we fail? Where did the policing fail? Where did my beat system fail? What failed? So that I can plug the holes. Plug those holes so that I can prevent. I didn't know one day I will run a prison. I did not know that. But when I was sent to a prison, a posting, nobody was going there, and there was no competition for that posting. Normally, we always have competitions who gets what kind of posting. There was no competition in my posting. So it was lying vacant. Nobody was going there, and I was posted. And I loved it. Because it was crime prevention. It was a lodging or a city where I could work in crime prevention. See, because that's where I had been sending people. And they came back contaminated. And I had to further the prevent because they became a member of a gang. I sent one, but they became 10. And I, as a police officer, was suffering. And I had no idea how prisons could be becoming crime preventers. So I got a ready-made crime prevention constituency. So when I started the same way. I moved from prevention. And do you know when prevention begins? Education. So I started to have a school system, education system for all 10,000 prisoners in my Tihar prison, with no teachers on roll, with no stationery, no blackboards, no books, and no classrooms. I started with what I had. I had trees, I had grassroots, I had people, and I had prisoners who were also educated. And I had a carpentry unit which could make blackboards for me. And I had people who could donate books. Schools donated. So what did I do? Got donated. All used school books, stationery, bags of all levels. And teachers became volunteers. Educated prisoners were made to be. I had policy-making power. I didn't finance. So as Inspector General, I did have money. I had policy-making power and the British written manual. Fortunately, they made a mistake. In that British manual, they had written that Inspector General of Prisons has policy-making power.
Right.
Which policy? It was not restricted. There were no exceptions. So I made a policy of education for all. I made yoga for all. I made spirituality for all. Right? I made volunteerism for all. Everything was all. Because in prison, if you do partly, it doesn't impact, it's a drop in the ocean.
Absolutely.
So whatever I did, the key to success was it was for all.
Right.
And with resources which were available locally. I didn't wait for government to sanction. That's what I changed.
Absolutely.
So within a few weeks, the system had settled down and had got into education.
Right.
So from crime, thinking, breeding, conspiring, to team building, it became education.
Absolutely.
And skilling. So many illiterate prisoners who came with signatures like this wrote out signing their signatures. And I let them take the bag along because there was no dearth of donation of bags coming from local schools in Delhi.
That's right.
Since I had served as a police officer in Delhi, as you know. So I had friends in schools and colleges.
Right.
I asked for donation. They came in abundance.
Absolutely.
This is something which is relevant as a practice anywhere in the world.
Right.
Let me tell you, it's not limited to Indian practice. This can be at no cost to the government, but very heavily a crime preventer in prisons, which will then take to reforms.
Absolutely. Ma'am, you joined the police service at a time when, if I may say so, no girl actually dared to think to join that. And when you look back at that time and look back now, we are in the first quarter of the 21st century. What is one advice that you give to young girls who want to join the police force now?
Advice to girls before they become girls. They grow up as girls. It's advice to parents.
Right.
Don't hold back your girls. Just you have no confidence to hold back your boys. You only want to control your girls.
Right.
Let them play. Let them be outdoor. Let them be risk-taking. Let them be courageous. You build them up. Let them choose their profession. And sports girls, NCC cadets, volunteerism, outdoor mobility, travel, hitchhiking, risk-taking, let them be. Some of them will become cops. Why not?
Right.
Why won't they?
Yeah,
so if I had not been a tennis player myself, you think I would have... I have walked into the Indian police service with equal training with the men.
Yeah.
Why? Because I was a better tennis player than many boys.
Yes.
Rather, all boys.
Yeah.
So I think unless it's not before they become girls, the women, they become girls, they grow up as girls. Who's holding them back? Parents, stop holding your girls back. Allow them an equal life.
Absolutely. It's more about giving them the opportunities that they equally deserve. The other thing that, ma'am, I wanted to ask you, that you have all along been a crusader against corruption, systemic corruption. But for some reason or the other, and unfortunately, corruption continues to exist in India in some form or the other, although I must admit and say that a lot things have changed. What's your view on this, and how can we actually get rid of systemic corruption?
It begins with you.
Yeah.
It begins with the leader. Others follow the leader. So leader first has to emit integrity. Be trustworthy in integrity. And be very conscious of the public money, how he or she spends public money, and seen to be spending, audited to be spending, and not talking. That's the key. You finished 50%. Thereafter, you become a mobile leader. See, I'm for mobility as a leader. He's an armchair leader. He has to be mobile leader. So, integrity and mobility is transparency. Because as a leader, you're visible. Right. You're accountable. You're talking. You're into town halls all the time. So, how can you be dishonest?
Absolutely.
So, I think it's so simple. Does it cost you any money? No. It just begins with you. And then you promote it by your walk the talk.
Right.
And not just talk. Not talk from the chair. Walk the talk. And there you are. It finishes to 10%. And then in the 10%, detection has happened where there's a criminal corruption, be unsparing. And there where it's a honest mistake, give them a chance.
Absolutely.
Look, you finished it. You finished corruption. Just 1% people still look at criminality. It's such a simple way of eliminating corruption.
Absolutely. Finally, ma'am, you did allude to it in one of the previous responses about leadership. While rapid strides, we have taken rapid strides as a nation in giving more leadership opportunities to women, there's still a huge gap that exists. How can we empower and inspire more women into leadership roles? Because it's the response, the solution to that is not binary. There are a lot of nuances there. There are social structures also. There are opportunity that we like to say that we are an equal opportunities employer. Many employers say, but that's not really the case in reality. How can you actually go about and
use technology? Be gender blind in recruitment. Use technology. And gender blind. We need the following quality. Be gender blind. Let people apply.
Absolutely.
There you don't even know whether you're recruiting a man or a woman. That means you're being fair to both.
That's right.
Let's be fair to both. Why shouldn't a meritorious man not get the job which is his due? But why should a woman be denied that merit because she's a woman?
Absolutely.
So I think make it gender blind. And that's what most of the corporate world now is doing, being gender blind in recruitment, using technological tools. These are the requirements. And then in the end, the problem again would be interviewing.
Right.
Then you are no more gender blind.
Yes.
Because then if the leadership, if between the two equal, how do you choose?
So how do you break the prejudice there?
I think then realizing what women bring extra on the table. Do you know, research after research is establishing, other than strategic planning, strategy and planning, women outscore in all other parameters. All other parameters. Research after research is showing. That means you are bringing in extra as strategic and planning or technical skills. Two things, technical skills and strategy. Two things, if women are trained, then they are outscoring.
Absolutely.
That means if you want to do well, then bring a balance. Then bring both. You bring the left, just as you need the left and the right brain to function equally to be productive, you need both. You need men and women with their perspectives, with the right qualifications and meritorious. You got extra.
Absolutely.
You got extra. Actually, those two will be covered. That means you have more on the table then, and that's what everybody needs.
Absolutely. Very well said, ma'am. Thank you so much for sharing your deep insights and perspective and dropping by to have this conversation with us. Always a delight to have you. So that's it from us for this episode. Here you have straight from Dr. One and only Dr. Kiran Bedi.